Hello. Welcome to what did I call this? Patrick and Coffee and Questions in the AM Feet Hollow Knight? Sure. I'm here. Everyone else is not here. Austin has the week off. Danielle and Rob. There are company holidays today and tomorrow and Wednesday. I moved my company holidays to Thursday and Friday because it fits better with my wife and my kid. So I said Austin has the week off. I don't believe he'll actually not work. He even said, hey, let me know. Maybe I'll pop in during your stream. So that's Austin Walker. Just, Austin, don't work. But if you want to call in, let me know. I'll pipe you in. Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to kind of just fuck around in Hollow Knight. You know, we'll kind of goof around with it, show it off a little bit. Came out on Switch pretty recently. It's a terrific game. But I'm mostly here to, like, answer your questions. This is not quite Hot Mic Mornings. That's something a little bit different. I'd like to try and figure out a setup for me to do something like that, but I didn't have time to figure that out for today, so instead, you got me, you got Hollow Knight, and I got you, and I got your questions. So yeah, just drop stuff in the chat, just at me. Get at me. Get it? Get at me. I don't even remember where I was at. It's been like a week since I played this. I spent my time finishing Vampire, which I have a big review that I have to finish writing after this. That'll go up today on Waypoint. And I've been playing through Detroit Become Human because when I have 5 days away from my machines, my PC and my PlayStation 4, on my sort of mini vacation coming up here, that's where I'll probably be playing a lot of Hollow Knight while my daughter takes a nap. I always say that though, and then I go to Wisconsin to hang out with my family and friends out there, and then I just end up like drinking beers during the day and then not playing any games, so I'm not going to guarantee that I'll play a lot of Hollow Knight, to be honest. So I just fought this boss that gave me, wow, great, nicely done. Okay, yeah, that's just you just crushing it. Gave me this dash ability. I remember what all the buttons do. That's not, yeah, okay. I forget. How do you do the? Oh, it's because I don't have any. I was like, well, how come I can't get myself any health back? Petrosaurus asks, basics. How you liking Hollow Knight so far? I like Hollow Knight a lot. It is a pretty terrific, extremely difficult, one of these kinds of games. Definitely right up my alley. And I'm looking forward to playing more and really getting into it. I know that it's a very long game, like it's a very involved game, but I'm kind of looking for something like that right now. I feel like that's like a good summer game. I'm hoping to like kind of play through this, and then I'll be like really teed up for Dead Cells, the sort of roguelike Castlevania type game. I don't know would be the best explanation of what that game come back here, buddy. I need your juice. I need your juice. Give me your juice. One more hit, and then I'll get juiced. Alright. Now I can give myself some of that. Rohei23 asks, would you rather watch all the Underworld movies or the Resident Evil movies or a crossover movie between the two? I have not seen any of the Underworld movies. I like What's-Her-Face just fine. I've heard those movies are fine, but I don't have like a strong opinion. I've seen the first Resident Evil movie, but weirdly have not seen the others. I don't have like a strong explanation for why I have not spent more time with the Resident Evil franchise. Are both of them here, or is it just this one dude? I like these guys. These are one of my favorite early enemies in the game, because they sort of teach you. Okay. Teach you about patience. You can't really do a whole lot with these guys. You gotta jump over them. Ha. Yep. Ooh, I can hit him him twice. Okay. Oh. But yeah, I thought those Resident Evil movies were supposed to be bad. Just okay, sloppy play. Those Resident Evil movies were supposed to be bad. Although I've heard that, like, I don't know, okay, I think we're in better shape now because I at least understand what the controls are. I'll go back and get my stuff. Johnny Anonymous argues the Underworld movies are infinitely better than any Resident Evil movie that isn't animated. Daniel, Patrick, did you read Yusuf Cole's Detroit Police before playing it, or are you waiting? I have read a lot about Detroit Become Human. I kind of wanted to go into that game with a sense of where critics who I agree with and have similar sensibilities about how they were feeling about Detroit. So I'm only getting to some of the more, like, revolutionary moments in the game where the androids are, you know, waking up, so to speak. Oh, can I not get up over there? Okay. So some of the, like, imagery and sort of like appropriated ideology and the other troublesome aspects of sort of like the civil rights movement that this game kind of lifts whole cloth in a way that is supposed to be not great. Seems like I'm about to get to that stuff, which is exciting. Not. That said, because anything involving a parent and a kid sort of like sets me off, like, big shock that I found myself like interested in the Kara and Alice arc of the game. That's the one that involves child abuse. If people are familiar, have seen the trailers, I don't want to get too into sort of like what happens necessarily, but that is that part of the game. So in order to get my stuff back, I gotta where am I? Where's my thing? There I am. Alright, just give me my stuff back. I'll just leave. Just leave. I don't need to fight you. You guys can just chill. I don't need to take out both of you. Oh, alright, well. Forgot that guy was there. I think the visuals in this game are astounding. There's just like real subtle artistry. Okay. 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 All right. Okay. Patrick, are you suggesting this game maybe requires a little more of your attention than you may be devoting to it as you switch your eyes between the chat? Possibly. Possibly. Let's check out some more questions. So basically, I'm trying to find some spots where I haven't quite filled in. I'm going to assume those are, you know, spots that I can use my newfound power to get some shit done. Mr. Soylent, did you finish Yoku's Island Express? I did. I did finish Yoku's Island Express. I didn't participate in the end game all that much. In a way that I was a little surprised about. The game sort of ends with you having a bunch of like sort of side quests that you can dink around with, but I asked around to my friends and it didn't seem like those were particularly satisfying, and that the reward for the side quests were like additional powers that more or less were not useful to you at that point in the game. And so I kind of explored the vast majority of the area. I kind of gotten fed up a little bit with the way some of the physics, like aiming, I don't know, like I was getting frustrated with my ability or inability to hit certain shots in a way that maybe those superpowers that you unlock would have made a little more agreeable. But I basically got what I wanted out of that game. It was like a 7-hour experience that I really, really, really enjoyed. I think a sequel would be fantastic. I want more games to include elements like that, and so yeah, more pinball and video games, please. Because that one was good. Favorite ask non-video game questions. Let's just get it all out there in the open. I'm an open book to you, in so much as I'm a book that is open in terms of what I feel comfortable talking about. People remind me you can down slice and up slice. I do forget that sometimes. bosses. Okay, I do not have a map for this area. I do think I came to this area and then realized I couldn't do very much here. Most likely that's because I didn't have this upgrade. Like, I don't think I was able to reach this jump. Oh, that was the one that I couldn't do. It was this one. Oh! Alright. Okay. Okay. Whoa. Bad situation. No, okay. Alright. That's actually not as hard as it seems. You're basically, I think it takes like 3 or 4 shots from that blast. Oh, that's unfortunate. Oh. Alright. I should have rested at that spot in between. Palmet Obling, do you play games with your kid, or are there certain types of games that you don't play in front of your kid? I found I have to play a lot of games I like after they sleep. So my kid will be 2 in August, and I'm starting to now have to think about like the content that I put in front of her. She's still sort of cognitively in a place that, like, here's like one thing I'll say. I haven't scared her yet. You know, I keep waiting while watching, you know, various films and things like that, like, you know, different animated movies. Like, oh, like, what's the thing that's gonna freak you out? Like, there was a moment in a movie that, I can't remember what it was, but there was a jump scare. And it's like, that doesn't count. Like, a jump scare gets an adult. Like, that's the purpose of the jump scare. I think I was talking with, Vinny Caravella about this, at PAX, East? I think it was PAX East. I think that's right. And I asked him, like, oh, well, how did you approach with, like, your first kid? Like, when did you sort of cut off playing certain types of games in front of him? And I think he was playing, like, one of the Middle-earth games, and it was just, like, you know, like, endlessly slaughtering, you know, untold amounts of... Oh, I should go to that little save spot so I can set myself up for the time, if I end up dying again. And I guess his kid, like, asked a question about, like, why he was attacking all of those people, and it made him uncomfortable, and was like, that was the point where, you know, decided to kind of move on from that sort of stuff. I feel like that it's different for each kid, it's different for each parent. You know, obviously, because of my career, I intend to play video games around my child, but in terms of, like, where I'll draw the line on the type of content that she can see, like here's a good example. Like, you know, when we have music playing in the car, like, now my kid is at the point where she repeats things a lot. So, you know, the theoretical of, like, hey, when should we stop swearing in front of our kid is, like, not a hypothetical. That is, like, it's a thetical. It's the scientific term for that. So it's like, okay, well, when a song, like, let's say, like a rap song comes on that has, like, an enormous amount of swearing, it's like, okay, like, should we stop? Should we not play that for her? Or does it not matter? Or, because, you know, there's, like, a couple lines of thought on how your kids are gonna handle things like that. Like, our pediatrician, when we were asking him about some of that stuff, he's like, well, look, I took 2 different approaches, or there's like kind of 2 different approaches you can take to sort of like the swearing question. And, like, this, I think, like, broadly, like, starts applying to, like, larger questions, like, as a parent about, like, content and exposure. Like, so he said you can basically just keep swearing and swear all the time and don't make a big fuss of it. You know, kids notice when you are shocked by something. So, you know, if you say, like, oh, you know, like, oh, fuck, and then you go, like, like, you know, like, you get, like, kind of, like, freaked out that you said it. Like, kids pick up on that stuff. Like, kids pick up on the fact that you were surprised about something or trying to conceal something. And so you can either continue swearing and that'll just become background noise to them, or you drop swearing entirely. And so my pediatrician had said that his approach was to keep swearing. Part of the reason that we actually went with the doctor that we did was that in our like initial meeting, like pitch meeting, basically, where like they try and sort of sell them and their practice and the other practitioners, was that he swore. I thought that was really cool, and I was like, all right, I feel like this person's gonna be like down to earth and realistic about talking to us about our kid, which is 100% borne out. Ow. Well, that's just okay. I couldn't handle that any worse. And so when he had his kids, he decided just to keep swearing, because he was like, I just kind of swear a lot, and I'm just gonna deal with it. I thought maybe there might be something up here. This kind of looks like an exit. Maybe not. Well, and his wife did not do that. And one time he mentioned that his kid had done something wrong, and his wife it's like the kid had to go into timeout or whatever, and the kid could be heard muttering off into the corner, "Oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit," which is like apparently his wife's like telltale, like did something wrong, like mutter under your breath swear, and so I thought that was pretty funny. All right, so I have to use this buddy in order to. Well, one, I should be. Okay, this is gone. Yeah. Okay, that went really about as poorly as possible. Like seeing in the chat some people's the ways that their parents handled stuff like that. Rohei23, my parents explained the swear words were adult words and gave us alternative words and things like sugar, honey, iced tea to say instead. Sir Axel, I feel people make too big a deal of casual swearing. If it's ever the word, I understand, but feel the use of vulgarity sparingly shouldn't come with the kind of weird taboo that it does. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm curious. Oh, here's a question for the chat. Chat, please. Stories about as a kid, like what was your first encounter with a swear? Like when one of my first encounters was and please excuse my language, like I called my mom a bitch because someone down the street had called their mom that because they'd picked that up from one of their older brothers. And so I just casually said that to my mom, and she was extremely upset with me. Understandable, reasonable response by my mother. I don't remember how old I was, but you know, let's say like 7 or something, something like that. And then yeah, I quickly learned that was not a phrase that you're supposed to call your mother, and that maybe I should be more careful about the words that I heard down the street and chose to repeat them. I was forgiven once I explained the origin of the word, in which in my head, that sounded like something nice, and very much, obviously, it was not. Just pause to read some of these. Chicken91, first encounter with a swear was my mom cutting her finger while prepping dinner. She yelled, "Fuck." That's very good. Dr. Karate 898, I told my dad to fuck off when he tried to wake me up early once. He was not pleased. Will of Eunice says, said, "Aw, geez," at Christian camp, and the counselor got mad at me because geez is a stand-in for Jesus. AKA for AK. My first encounter was South Park the movie. My parents thought I was a kid's cartoon and it took my uncle walking in on the swear song to shut that down. I feel like South Park was an entryway for a lot of folks, would be my guess. I could see parents who, generally allow their kids to watch whatever, not really understanding with South Park. I was in a situation where my parents are pretty lax, or like lax is maybe the wrong word, but like they kind of trusted us, and we didn't betray that trust, and so they sort of let us watch whatever we wanted. Okay, hold on, pause on that. Okay. Oh, wait a... Oh. Okay, here we go. Oh, you gotta be kidding me! Okay, I figured that was like a proper boss area. Okay. Let's get my health back. Alright, now we're in a good position. One more. So hopefully this will open up. Here we go. Alright. So now I don't have to do that again. Presumably. I don't think those two respawn. So what was I gonna say? I was the house that we were allowed to watch Beavis and Butthead at. My mom was sort of just like, whatever, that show is goofy, and it's, please stop saying which definitely we did not stop doing. So my mom was wrong on that account. So what did I just get? Balder shall protect. It's bearer with a hard shell, a focusing soul. Shell is not indestructible and will shatter if it absorbs too much damage. Okay, that's cool. Look, and it's like contextually interesting place for that to be hidden. Like, it's not just an item that was randomly placed. It's placed contextually in the environment by like enemies where it would make sense that they would be protecting, something like that. Mr. Soylent, do you read horror comics and graphic novels? I just read Through the Woods and loved it and looking for suggestions. Unfortunately, not. Like, I've read like the Amityville Horror. I've read a lot of Stephen King. I read a lot of Clive Barker, but definitely not graphic novels. If people have suggestions in the chat, I'd both be interested, and I think Mr. Soylent would be interested as well. I gotta go down anyway. So I still need a map for that area, but I guess it probably connects from somewhere else, maybe? Let's see. So I think we're gonna go down and to the left. Down left. It's gonna be our next spot. Well, let's see. Please keep adding me or Waypoint in the chat, and I will take a look at that. At Waypoint, that's actually the one I have up here in my browser. New Hado, what's the biggest difference between Waypoint today versus Waypoint when it was originally founded? Well, one, it wasn't called Waypoint. It was called Vice Gaming. We came up with the name Waypoint in the first 6 months. Austin was hired in the summer, early summer of 2016. I came on in early August of 2016. Danica was around that time as well. And we were sort of like the core group alongside Mike Diver, who was already there, who sort of came up with what would become eventually Waypoint. I mean, the team is bigger, so like the scale of things are bigger. The podcast, I think we've mentioned this before, but you know, like, the original name we wanted for the podcast was Vice City. We thought that was like clever and on brand and sort of reflected, you know, a certain tone that we were going for with the site. And what we probably should have done was just launched it with that and just dealt with it, but our legal department suggested not doing that and just figuring that we'd get a cease and desist from Rockstar, which maybe, like, it might have happened. And I believe we sent like a casual email to Rockstar asking like, hey, like, do you think you guys would send a cease and desist if we just called our podcast that? And they were like just don't. So Vice being a fairly conservative place, legally, at least relative to other places I've worked in media, that means that Viceland did not become the name of our podcast. Waypoint Radio is fine. I think it's an okay title. I feel like we ended up sort of just settling because we couldn't come up with anything better. But like naming things is really hard. It's like my least favorite thing to do. Like when it's like it's very easy to come up with ideas for things to do. It's like so hard to come up with ways to talk about them. To the point that I think it often stops you from doing more ideas because, oh, right, okay, I have to come up with like a name for this, and like that's just such a boring and frustrating process that it's easier just to go like, what if we just didn't? Any of these places? No, okay, so this is where I came down before. All right, so I don't know if I can do this area or not. So it's kind of like now, like, you know, because I have the new power. Okay. Now. I'm not saying I don't like the name Waypoint. I like the name Waypoint a lot. I was merely talking about the suggestion of calling it Waypoint Radio or something different. I'm not even necessarily saying that Vice City was a better name. More just that Waypoint Radio felt like we were sort of settling because we didn't kind of land on something more imaginative. Okay, so that area I can't do yet. I do have some other options. Let's go to the right and see what we find. Takosake, how do you feel about the Bears this season? I feel cautiously optimistic. Chicago Bears are my hometown, my beloved, my despised football team. They have not been relevant or interesting in a long time. When they went to the Super Bowl in 2006, I was not really like an actual fan. It was more just, it's the Bears. You root for the Bears. It really wasn't until I met my wife who had an existing fandom that I really, I can reach this. I don't know if this is enough. Okay, buddy. But yeah, I mean, I think that I'm excited about the coach. I'm excited about some of the players they've signed. I'm excited for them to. Okay, I don't think I can reach that. I think that is some sort of like double dash. So I'm just gonna move on. That would be the kind of thing that you would want to mark if I had purchased those. I don't think I purchased those icons quite yet. There's some icons you can get where you can like self-mark things on the map, which would be useful for areas that are like don't get automatically marked, but you want a reason to come back. Oh, well, I was get some of my juice back. Let's see if there's any other questions in the chat. Quinn Scully, I guess you could say this hope this season is bearable. Oh, try a down attack. It lets you bounce? Oh, like bounce off of enemies. Really?
Yep.
Oh, wow. I did not even realize that was a thing. Good to know. Thank you. Tip from the chat. Oops, didn't mean to use that. Jimmy Jangles, thanks for the recommendation on citations needed. Yes, I've heard that from all sorts of people. If you, like me, sort of like grew up in the Obama era, like found yourself largely aligning with Obama in terms of like his approach to politics, which that's not saying that I completely agreed with everything that Obama did or said or enacted, but as someone that went to high school, was, it's like had an era of their life defined by 9/11, and I knew who George Bush was. I knew he was president. I was sort of paying attention, but it really wasn't until Barack Obama that I got quote unquote involved. And so his approach to politics really came to define me a lot, for better and for worse. Oh, this is. And in the wake of Hillary Clinton's loss, the ascension of Donald Trump, and the extreme radicalization of the Republican Party, and the sort of lack of a spine from the Democratic Party, it seems that I believe that a lot of Obama's pragmatism and his attempts to reach out to the other side did come from a genuine place, but are essentially outdated in this era of politics, and there needs to be a rethinking of approach, a rethinking of how politics is applied, is fought, is argued, is built from the ground up. And so Citations Needed is a podcast in which they talk through. So originally when I was post 2016 election, I was like, hey, I'm interested in some podcasts or websites or places that are a little more far left. I'd like to learn some new things about politics that maybe I see from some of my friends who identify as socialists on Twitter, but I'm not saying I wouldn't agree with them. I just haven't heard the arguments. And sometimes on Twitter, things are just sort of explained in a taken for granted sort of way. People are like, oh, you should listen to Chapo Trap House. And so I tried to listen to that podcast. I didn't find them particularly funny. I was mostly irritated. And more importantly, I didn't feel like they took for granted, if you were listening, that you already agreed with their politics. And I was still then searching for a podcast that was going to be a little more like explain the argument, deconstruct the bullshit for me, so that not only can I articulate it to other people when they have questions, but that rather than just presuming well, this was the way, this is the better way, just follow along with us, you centrist. I would describe more myself as pragmatic than actually centrist, even though I've taken a lefter turn in the last couple of years. But I was more that I wanted to actually hear the argument explained to me. So Citations Needed is a really good podcast that breaks down sort of narratives on the left and the right. And for the left, it's more along centrist narratives and things like that, and explains how they came to be, what the thinking is, what the argument is, why they don't hold up, why they need to be rethought. And so it has been just enormously helpful as I've tried to rethink my own politics, as we approach the midterms and picking candidates locally, and who do I support financially, and on social media and stuff like that. Just, where does my energy go in the future? So, yeah. Citations needed. If you're looking for a socialist-leaning podcast and found a Chapo Trap House endlessly irritating, I highly recommend Citations Needed. I think it will be a little more along the lines of, potentially along the lines of what you're looking for. All right, so I've looked those areas. I guess I can go down near the Stone Sanctuary, and we'll see if that might be a little more useful. Let's see. Some other people are recommending some other good, like, lefty pods. Delete your account. Dollop. I have not listened to either of these, so I cannot recommend them. I can only say Citations Deep. Big Knife. Are you curious about Bloodstained at all? Not sure how you feel about those old Igarashi-era Castlevanias, but watching this reminds me a little bit of them. Yeah, I mean, I love Symphony of the Night. I enjoyed, like, a handful of the Game Boy Advance ones. Sort of fell off at a certain point because it felt like it was just kind of spinning its wheels. And so I'm curious about Bloodstained. I don't have strong feelings about it. I have not played it. The bits I've seen, like in the screenshots, like did not strike me as particularly impressive, if I'm being 100% honest. And, like, you know, it's a problem for a game like Bloodstained when there are so many other games of that type coming out. Like, you have, you know, the Hollow Knights of the world. Like, obviously those kinds of games are doing their own thing, but in a way that is valuable and needed at this stage. Like, do we just need another Symphony of the Night? I mean, I'm not saying, maybe people believe that is true, and, you know, more power to it. I hope that game is good. But part of the appeal of, like, Hollow Knight is that it's sort of taking, it's kind of going in its own direction a little bit, rather than just aping the past. Turbo Tango, I think the best crooked media show is Pod Save the People. It's got a strong criminal justice reform, social justice activist angle, and not as Main Street Democrat focused as the main show. I guess someone that has dipped around a lot of the Pod Save podcasts, I agree. Also, it's, like, notable to make sure that, like, in your rotation of podcasts, you have, like, some, like, people of color and marginalized folks, and not just white dudes telling you how things should be in the Democratic Party, because that's not the future of the Democratic Party. Says white guy who recognizes where things are going and that should be embraced as opposed to be ignored. I will say I have, someone that doesn't know a whole lot about foreign policy, I have more generally enjoyed Pod Save the World, Tommy Vitor's podcast. I don't need to hear Ben Rhodes ever again. Like, I'm annoyed at that group's infatuation with that part of Obama's legacy, but I have found generally to be Tommy Vitor to be someone who is a little more open to listening to parts of foreign policy that maybe contradict some of the policies that he advocated and defended while he was part of the Obama administration. So I've enjoyed dipping into that podcast for sure. Where are we? Down. Killix, have you played Ori and the Blind Forest? Been thinking of playing that and Hollow Knight, but have a hard time getting into 2D platformers. Yeah, Ori and the Blind Forest is, like, one of my favorite Metroid-style games of the modern era. Like, I think it is a terrific game. I am so excited for the upcoming sequel. So, you know, I don't know if I definitely, okay, well, I definitely recommend that if you're not into these types of games. But if you are into these types of games and you have not played Ori and the Blind Forest, then, yo, you messing up. I probably should have, if I'm going to go down one of these paths, I don't think I sat at a save point in a while. Sorry, I'm going to have to go back and do that. Wait, is it down? Yep. Things are weird. Yep. I'm gonna scroll up through, Quinny Scully, have you heard about the Amazon Italy Bloodborne 2, quote, leak? no, but I know that people have been, and legitimately so, people look towards retail leaks as a guidance on announcements that may be forthcoming. Certainly there was some indication of that at E3, but I believe that someone pointed to me recently that Sunset Overdrive 2 is in that selection of games in Amazon Italy, and all my reporting from people who very much should know have suggested that Sunset Overdrive 2 is not in development, not coming anytime soon. And so if a game like Sunset Overdrive 2 is being listed there, that would give me pause. I don't know if that predicates a PC version of that game. I feel like I would have heard about a PC version of that game if it was happening. But I can't profess to have been specifically asked about a PC version, so I sort of like reserve the right to be uninformed on that bit, I suppose. Do I want a Bloodborne 2? Yes. Oh, hold on. I'm gonna phone call from mi madre. I'm gonna answer that real quick. I'm gonna mute my mic. I'll be right back. Thank you for your patience. Scrolling up, trying to see if there's any questions that I missed. Kedron, what's your opinion of Pod Saves America if you've listened? Hold on. Give me a second on that one. I got a big boy. Oh. Okay, you can leap over him. Oh, balls. Woo! All right, the up and down ones. This is, I think, a boss is teaching me to use this. I think I'm gonna stick to down. Seems to be more lively. All right, well, hey. Probably can get 2 off. Whoa. Okay, that's misjudged. Oh, that's a big old bug! And I squished that big old bug. Woo! Bye, big old bug. That's one of the things. I'll get back to your question you asked before about Pod Save America. I really like how the bosses and some enemy types in this game are specifically engineered to get you to understand certain techniques of attack, and that was one in particular where, yes, could you probably attack it in front and like keep healing yourself? There are probably other ways to survive that boss, but you notice that once you figured out the technique the game was attempting to convey to you, is hitting down, hitting up. I largely went unhit unless I was being greedy or sort of out of turn. But generally, the moment you figured out, bink, bink, the moment you were looking at what is the game trying to tell you through the movement of the enemy, oh, once I've done that, I now realize the game gets out of the way and says, that is its way of saying, you've solved this. Now just do it a bunch of times, understand the repetition, internalize the repetition. You've you've clearly taken the lesson, and the reward is basically like, we're gonna get out of your way, kick this enemy's ass, like, you've done it. And I think that's just a chef's kiss way of handling. When people describe Hollow Knight as a game that learned the lessons of Dark Souls, as opposed to copying outright sort of like the structure and mechanics of Dark Souls, I think that is one of those moments. Anyway, from the question before asking about Pod Save America, yeah, I listen to Pod Save America. They have a podcast twice a week. I will admit to it being, I think, part of a holdover of my own like personal identity, being sort of like caught up in having taken enormous pride in voting for Barack Obama, and Obama, like, as someone that like often prides themselves on being sort of a pragmatist, that I saw a lot of myself in Obama in that sort of like mentality, and so the idea there was a podcast that like had people from his administration, and post 2016, you're just kind of looking for anything to sort of like wrap or your head around at a time when things were extremely confusing and scary. That was definitely one of those outlets for me. I'll also say, like, it has been interesting to watch. I'm sure people disagree a lot with the politics and approach of the folks on that show, and I more or less like wholeheartedly agree. But I think there are a lot of people like me that, like, part of the fallout of 2016 was like, okay, realizing that change needs to happen like from within. Like, my own politics need to shift. I need to find a new strategy. I need to rethink how I approach politics, going forward, if there's going to be like real change and real gains made, and that pragmatism is maybe not the way forward when the other side is not playing in good faith. And it's been interesting to listen to the Pod Save folks sort of like evolve. I'm not saying they become socialists or outright lefties, and I think people are going to continue to and always continue to have problems with them, and I hear you and I get you. But I also think there's worth in like realizing, like, in some ways more than I'm willing to admit, like, I found myself politically in their camp, and that watching my own evolution happen over time in some ways mirrors, I think, a lot of people who are like sort of like having their eyes opened in the Trump era in a way that is somewhat reflected by, I think, a lot of the audience that finds that podcast to give them something, whatever that may be. So I'm not going to apologize for listening to a podcast that I have problems with and I find entertaining. But I also like try and round that out with other things, right? Like Citations Needed, and listen to Still Processing. It's a great New York Times podcast. It's more about culture and also gets into podcasts. It also has two people of color, and they're very fascinating and funny and interesting. I highly recommend that podcast. Oh, buddy! What? What? I lost a lot of stuff. Johnny Anonymous, do you listen to any European-based podcasts? I don't. Hey, look. I don't think so. I listen to... this is just my full list. Around the NFL. It's a very entertaining, kind of giant bomb-casty group of folks talking about football. The Bill Simmons podcast, because I find some of the guests to be funny, but I listen to it like increasingly less as time goes on. Citations Needed, the Slate Culture Gabfest, 538's political podcast, Hogan Johns from WGN, they do like Bears talk, Idle Thumbs, Important If True, Invisibilia, the New Yorker Politics and More Show, NPR Politics, On the Media, Pod Save America, Pod Save the World, Slate Political Gabfest, Radiolab presents More Perfect. Oh my God, you don't listen to More Perfect, especially given all the conversation we're going to have about the Supreme Court in the months to come. You should listen to More Perfect. It's a great long-form podcast about important Supreme Court decisions over the years. Reply All, The Ringer NFL show, Slow Burn, podcast about Watergate, which I guess is over now, but you should go listen to that too. State Week, which is a weekly podcast about Illinois politics, as I try to understand sort of my local sort of like situation better. Still Processing, the talk show with John Gruber, which is like a lot of Apple talk. Trump Inc., which I'm mixed on. It's a show that like looks specifically at like Trump's businesses. And for some reason, Waypoint Radio is listed here. I don't deleted. Who listens to that podcast? All right, let's go down. I need to recover my stuff, and I need to be careful as shit because I had a lot of stuff, and I am deeply freaked out about getting it back. Yeah, ghosts. I get it. Woo! Okay, don't attack things. And I quickly look into some other rooms to see if there's like save points. Oh, I heard the map boy. Okay, I'm gonna go get my stuff, but my map boy is in there. But you need money. Yeah, Woo! Oh, let's go get a map. Map boy. I don't know if I should attack any of these. I need to get out of here. Oh, come on! Oh, alright, well, it looks like I can't get through there. I don't think I can jump over you. Ah! I feel like I should go like what's my nearest travel point? It's far. It's not anywhere near here. Do I have any other entryways? Okay, so there's a place off to the left. Okay, just do it the way you know how to do it. I need to go get some healing. I am scared. Alone. Okay, here's a nice friendly bush. It does not have enough for me to heal. Ha! Lilifin, what is it that originally started your radicalization, so to speak? So I feel like sometimes radicalization can come across as a fairly loaded term, but you know, basically, like understanding maybe my own sense of politics were needed a rethink. I mean, it was 2016, right? Like, I mean, I was thinking about that stuff a little bit more, but, you know, it's like what informed the fact that I immediately found myself supporting Hillary over Bernie Sanders. I would have been 100% fine with Bernie Sanders as the nominee. I 100% believed that like the policies we're proposing were a more humane, just society. But the pragmatist in me saw, oh, like I don't think that's electable. I don't think that's something like, and Donald Trump is a historically monstrous candidate. Like the safer route. I mean, I also thought that Hillary Clinton, like, who had lots of sort of personal and professional issues, I thought she was endlessly qualified for the presidency. I don't like have any regrets over like that rationale, but I have regrets over how I arrived at my original conclusions, and I think a lot of that was having to like have sort of a come to Jesus moment over like how do you want the future to look. Like, I have a kid now, I'm in my 30s, like life is limited, I don't know where the future is going, and it's like you know, pragmatism does not necessarily get you there in your lifetime, and I want to see change in my lifetime. People ask about my skills in Hollow Knight. Like, yeah, I'm a lot better at this game when I'm not paying attention to what people are saying. Oh right, okay, I was gonna look to save. User is banned for this pun. Good username. Thoughts on Mummy Demastered? I feel like a lot of people slept on the fact that Waypoint made a really fun little Metroidvania. I liked that game. I just didn't really get back around to it. I think I streamed some of it. I want to say that's true. I wrote about it. Maybe I didn't stream it. I wrote about it. It seemed fine. John Flavin, have you taken any newfound lefty opinions to the streets? Any activism? No, that's like the big next step. The existence of my child obviously makes things complicated. I this weekend intended to go and support some of the protests that were happening. There were even some locally for my kid, but the heat was such that it was difficult to make that work. But, you know, not every day is going to have 102 degrees with humidity making it feel like it's 110. Yes, you know, I think like I'm planning to, one of my districts is a flip district. It'll be crucial to the fall midterms, and so I have every intention of going out there and making calls, knocking doors for my sort of local nominee in an attempt to flip that seat so that we can actually bring some accountability to a group of monsters that are currently running the White House. So that's my like midterm goal is like helping flip a seat. Short-term goal is like paying attention. Like, you know, I was mentioning, like I was listening to State Week, which is this Illinois politics podcast. It's paying attention to like school board elections. Like I've mentioned this on Waypoint Radio, but I had a chance last year to like vote for a school board election in which the big difference between the folks that were up was whether you were going to support the rights of a child to a trans child to like go to the bathroom that made them feel most comfortable, the one that they identified with, and I voted in the school board that believed in that, and that group won, and that was like a really satisfying, edifying moment in which like I made a meaningful difference in someone's life through my political decisions. It was a very low turnout election in which like the board that won by a couple of hundred of votes, and that was extremely satisfying and gave you a taste of like the kind of change you can make if you realize not everything is national politics, not everything is taking down Trump or hoping that Robert Mueller is gonna solve everything for you. You know, sometimes it's actually going out there, seeing what kind of difference you can make. I felt pretty good about talking and pulling that off at the same time, and that was a situation where I was able to do that. Big Knife, is it taboo to ask a question if Patrick missed it? No, you can just like be cool about it. Don't, you know, don't spam. But if I, you know, it's been like 5-10 minutes, you are free to ask a question again. It's fine. Woo! That was deeply satisfying. Like voting for a school board that is full of shitty bigots. Voting against them. Let me be clear. Alright, so I can't get over there. But I can't. I'm guessing you probably get like a dash up at some point. I don't have that at the moment. Wizard Dad asks, what is your stance on the recent sauce discourse? I don't have strong sauce thoughts, except that buffalo sauce is the best, and ketchup's pretty alright, but buffalo sauce is really, you know, I guess, you know what? Like, fuck Tabasco sauce. Like, gonna be honest, it's just hot. It doesn't have like a real good flavor. Whereas like Cholula, Cholula, just slab it all over everything. Can't stand Tabasco. I get so angry when it's like, can I have some hot sauce? And they only have Tabasco. It's like, come on, just give me some flavor. Take me to Flavor Town, baby. Alright, so I've done everything I can over there. Jelly Ray, is Mario Maker Mornings ever making a comeback? Yeah, as soon as they announce Mario Maker 2, 100%. It will be back the day that I am able to start playing Mario Maker again. All right, so I'm guessing Fog Canyon is where I have to go. But I have so much money, I need to get back to the service and spend some of it. And there's probably, like I'm so far away from a travel point that there has to be another travel point. Yeah, let's just get more money so I can be stressed out about it. Oh. Oh, well, that's just... Alright, I need to go like... Oh my god. Okay, no, just go. Get out of here. Where am I? Okay. What can I do? How can I turn this ship around? Here we go. Alright. Well, if you insist, pragmatist tips for starting a family when you have a job such as a writer. I've been very fortunate that I've been doing things as long as I have, and I make a pretty decent wage that I'm proud of, and I moved to an area that has a cheaper cost of living. I don't live in the Chicago suburbs because it was my ideal place to live. I lived there because it was sort of a compromise of, okay, I want to have a family, I really wanted to own a house, and how do I achieve that? And you know, the way to achieve that was to live in an affordable suburb. Not even the suburb that we ideally wanted to live in. It was sort of like second on our list. I'm very happy with the area that we're in. It's a great neighborhood, but some of the other ones on our list were just too expensive. So, as for how you manage a family and all that stuff, man, like I couldn't do it without my partner, both financially and sort of just financially, emotionally, like all of that is tied up in just partners who also has, like, quite frankly, like, better financial prospects than I do in the future. Like, there is like a pretty strict cap on the amount of money I can make going forward, other than like what I sort of get as a result of Vice's union, which helps, sort of ensure that I'm getting a steady increase every year, like not giant. Oh, come on. Giant leaps, but like it's steps forward. Whereas my wife, she works at a company that, like, there are bonuses and like regular salary negotiations, and this is me, like, less throwing shade at a place like Vice as much as just like what it's like to work in media. It's like my wife spent her 20s trying to kind of like figure out her career, and she now has achieved that, and she is just on sort of a rocketing pace to do. We had a conversation. This is a long time. We've been together since like 2007, 2006, and sometime in our 20s out in San Francisco, she had a conversation where she was kind of like starting to figure out a career, and she said, hey, this kind of came up because of something a friend said, but like, would you feel threatened if I started making more money than you? I've always sort of been the breadwinner. I had a very early career track that kind of defined a lot of us moving around, and that moving around also meant that my wife's career sometimes was put on pause in ways that were compromises in our relationship. That was something we always talked about and we felt comfortable with, but like it definitely like made it harder for her sometimes. And I said, fuck no, like, make as much money as you can. Like, there is no part of me that is going to be upset if you're making more money than me. If you make shit tons of money, like, make shit tons of money, please. And so, here we go. I was like, that's not one of my hang-ups, and whoever is out there saying they have a hang-up because their partner might make more money than them, I mean, they got some fucking problems, man. Who doesn't want more money? Like, what am I getting? Jesus. Okay. Did I miss? Oh no, here it is. Woo! Travel spot! Black ISIS, Black ISIS? I guess that could go, Are you saying video game journalism is not the key to fame and fortune, Patrick? Yes, especially if you don't want to get into management, which I don't. I'm not saying that I don't do some managing, but I don't, I don't want to be an editor-in-chief, really, honestly. And it's like, if you don't want to get into like running things, then you sort of hit a cap on how much you can make. And I'm okay with that. I've made peace with that, and I live a very happy life, in which I'm able to financially contribute, to our family. So I'm not complaining about that, but it is something that's realistic. And it took me a long time to get there. The amount of money I make relative to my friends who have put in the same amount of time in their careers, I don't make anywhere near what they do. This is a big travel station. Usually when you find like the travel stations in the game, it's just a really small area. User was banned for this pun. Is more successful a separate issue from making more money, especially if both people in the relationships are in creative fields? I can see there being tension. Yeah, possibly. That has not been something that I have experienced. But I can imagine, if you worked in similar fields, that would be a problem. Like, it's not like a relatable anecdote, but you've like read about like Hollywood actors, like when, like sometimes those relationships can be difficult because if someone's having a lot of success in their career and another person's having trouble, like that can be like really devastating. And so I wouldn't be shocked if like that is, I wouldn't be surprised if that also exists for two folks that exist in like are in creative fields. Like, I guess I'm in a creative field, but like I don't know, it feels different than being like an artist or something like that. My wife works in marketing, which also requires creativity, but no, I don't know. I would definitely not call us artists. Little Zilla, Patrick, if you don't know, standing under the stag lets you talk to them about the area. Ooh, that's good to know. Yeah, I agree. I feel like I need to buy that key. $950, that's not a lot. I could grind for that. $1,800 for that lantern is a lot of... Is that worth it, people who have Hollow Knight? Do you just grind for that? Or will eventually you just like encounter high level enemies enough that you can kind of... that will just become eminently more affordable? Sir 5000 was the weirdest thing someone on the internet has said about you. I think, like, to date, one of the funnier sort of things that people have said is sort of the conspiracy theory about me leaving Giant Bomb, which is that, so I announced that I was leaving on the last Game of the Year show in 20 whatever, and that was the same year of Gamergate, I think, or like a year later. And the thought, the conspiracy went that Jeff Gerstmann had pushed me out of the site. Like, it came at the fact that it happened like quietly on a Game of the Year podcast. There wasn't a big thing about it, and that this like is relayed on top of a separate conspiracy theory that Jeff Gerstmann constantly disagreed with the material I was putting up on the site and was looking for a way to undermine me and get me out, and that this was like his perfect opportunity, and he fired me from the site. Whereas like the opposite is true, and that like Jeff fought really hard to like keep me on board, and it just didn't make sense professionally or personally anymore for me to be working for that site. And like I left and Austin joined, and like that's super fucking cool. And then Austin left and people like Abby and Ben are there, and so like that's just this cycle of how that stuff works sometimes. But you go to certain circles of the internet where both places there were people like were fans of my work and places where people weren't fans of my work, and like that conspiracy comes up like constantly as like a stunning indictment of me and my relationship with that place. Whereas like I continue, like Brad Shoemaker is one of my like really really good friends. Like I'm friends with everyone there. Like same with Vinny. Like same with Jeff. Like I sing and hang out with all those people all the time. That was a Giant Bomb was such a formative part of my life. I wouldn't be where I am without Giant Bomb. So I was not fired, unfortunately. I left of my own. I mean, weirdly, it's funny. When I was thinking, it just didn't seem tenable to be in Chicago when Giant Bomb is a place where people in the same room together. That's just like philosophically like what that site like is at its core. And I just wasn't particularly happy, and I was not going to get a hire out in Chicago. So it's like, okay, I wasn't going to build my own thing. I just happened to absentmindedly mention to Steven Totilo or Kotaku that, like, hey, you know, I'm just thinking maybe in the future I might explore my options and do something different. Just wanted to give a heads up because I, like, really value your advice and input on what maybe that might look like, and we had a lot of fun working together in the past, so, like, who knows? And then he said, like, this, I was not looking for a job at that point. It was just me, like, feeling out things with friends, like, what might make sense for a next step. And he goes, well, weirdly, I just had a conversation with our finance people, and I have the money to, like, do, like, a big hire. I could probably get you an offer letter in the next couple of days. And then that's why things happened as fast as they did. I did not actually intend to leave Giant Bomb for maybe like another 6 months or a year if anything came up. But then that offer letter just showed up on my desk, and once the offer letter is there, a process just kind of starts. And I went through that process and then actually negotiated with Kotaku and Giant Bomb to, like, let me stay on for an extra month because I wanted to finish out Game of the Year. I thought that'd be a way to come out to San Francisco, see everyone, do proper goodbyes, and be part of a thing that I still miss dearly. And then we just kind of snuck in that I was leaving at the end of the podcast because that just made the most sense, and I didn't want that to dominate, or we didn't want that to dominate the discussion. When I left, or Game of the Year stuff, we wanted people to talk about Game of the Year, not that Patrick was leaving. So, anyway, there's the story. That's the story of how I left Giant Bomb. That's, I think, going to do it for this morning. I'm going to go eat lunch. I am going to finish my review of Vampire. That'll be up on the site this afternoon. And thanks to everyone for hanging out, watching me play Hollow Knight, answering some questions. I'll be doing another stream tomorrow morning. It might just be me and a cup of coffee and answering some questions, because trying to play Hollow Knight while answering questions is difficult. So, you know, maybe not do that a second time. But thanks everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Trying to get off topic with video games a little bit, trying to keep in the spirit of Hot Mic Mornings. Look for that Vampire review. Look for other stuff. It's gonna be a light week, but there'll be things happening throughout this week, despite it being a holiday weekend. I'll see y'all tomorrow morning. Get your coffee, get your questions. We'll come back and do a little bit of that again. So thanks for tuning in. See ya.